I'm going to certainly take advantage of the days off, but I can't celebrate a holiday that didn't include me. Do yourself a favor, and you guys, I want y'all to come over and look at this picture. Do yourself a favor and go out to my wall and look at the picture that I posted of 2 black men. Can you see this, Clayton? Look at the picture that I posted of 2 black men. Hopefully it'll come up. And I will tell y'all, something's going on with Facebook today. In that picture, there are 2 black men. And the caption that I wrote was, while you're celebrating Independence Day, remember your ancestors weren't free. And the picture that you're seeing, and I have my interns, and by the way, y'all have to excuse me, I hate grammatical errors. I'm one of those people that'll go back and edit my stuff. While you celebrating, that should be your or you are. But the point I'm trying to make to you guys is this. And I'm gonna describe this picture to you. Okay? I want to describe this picture to you. It is 2 men, black men, strapped to a tree by chains and ropes. They are obviously dead. What you think they were doing on the 4th of July? This is serious, folks. If we're going to fix our problem, then we got to know where the problem came from. And there makes no sense whatsoever that you're celebrating the 4th of July and your people were not free. Don't buy into this argument that we're all Americans. Well, if we were all Americans, why were they treating our black people like that? If we are all Americans, why are they treating black people the way they're treating black people today? If we're all Americans. See, white people conveniently want to holler, we're all Americans, when it suits their purpose. But when they want to really speak about truth and justice and freedom as it relates to the black man, they don't give a damn. They don't give a damn. So I'm going to read to you as I did last 4th of July, the day before 4th of July. Because since y'all think that I'm so out of line sometimes on some of the things that I say, I want to read to you what Fredrick Douglas had to say. Y'all can go ahead and sit. I don't need to stand. I'm going to read to you what Fredrick Douglas had to say. Because this is important. Fredrick Douglas was one of the other people that I first wrote a report about in Black history. So this, yes, is our black fact for today. Fellow citizens, pardon me, allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in the Declaration of Independence extended to me? And am I, therefore, called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar and to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude for the blessings resulting from your independence to us? Would to God, both for your sakes and ours, that an affirmative answer could be truthfully returned to these questions. Then would my task be light and my burden easy and delightful, for who is there so cold that a nation's sympathy warm him? Who so obdurate and dead to the claims of gratitude that would not thankfully acknowledge such priceless benefits? Who so silent and selfish that would not give his voice to swell the hallelujahs of a nation's jubilee when the chains of servitude had been torn from his limbs. I am not that man. In a case like that, the dumb might eloquently speak, and the lame man leap as an art. But such is not the state of the case. I say it with a sad sense of disparity between us am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you, this day, rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, but not me. The sunlight that brought light and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems were inhuman mockery and sacrilegious irony. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today? If so, there is a parallel to your conduct, and let me warn that it is dangerous to copy the example of nation whose crimes towering up to heaven were thrown down by the breath of the Almighty, burying that nation in irrevocable ruin. I can today take up the plaintive lament of a peeled and woe-smitten people. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat, yea, we wept when we remembered Zion. We hanged our harps upon the willows in the midst thereof, for there they thought carried us away captive, required of us a song. And they who wasted us required us mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. How can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. If do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions whose chains heavy and grievous to yesterday are today rendered more intolerable by the jubilee shouts that reach them. If I do forget, if I do not faithfully remember those bleeding children and of sorry this day, may my right hand cleave to the roof of my mouth. To forget them, to pass lightly over their wrongs, and to chime in with the popular thing would be treason, most scandalous and shocking, and would make me a reproach before God and the world. My subject then, fellow citizens, is American slavery. I shall see this day and its popular characteristics from the slave's point of view, standing there identified with the American bondsman making his wrongs mind. I do not hesitate to declare with all my soul that the character and conduct of this nation never looked blacker to me than on this 4th of July. Whether we turn to the declarations of the past or the professions of the present, the conduct of the nation seems equally hideous and revolting. America is false to its past, false to the present, and solemnly binds herself to be false to the future. Standing with God and the crushed and bleeding slaves on this occasion, I will, in the name of humanity, which is outraged, in the name of liberty, which is fettered, in the name of the Constitution and the Bible, which are disregarded and trampled upon, dare to call in question and to denounce with all the emphasis I can command everything that serves to perpetuate slavery, the great sin and shame of America. I will not equivocate. I will not excuse. I will use the severest language I can command, and yet not one word shall escape me that any man whose judgment is not blinded by prejudice shall not confess to be right and just. For the present, it is enough to affirm the equal manhood of the Negro race. It is not as astonishing as that while we are plowing, planting, reaping, using all kinds of mechanical tools, erecting houses, constructing bridges, building ships, working in metals of brass, iron, copper, and secretaries, having among us lawyers, doctors, ministers, poets, authors, editors, orators, and teachers, and that while we are engaged in all manner of enterprises common to other men, digging gold in California, capturing the whale in the Pacific, feeding sheep and cattle on the hillside, living, moving, acting, thinking, planning, living in families as husbands, wives, and children, and above all, confessing and worshiping the Christian's God and looking hopefully for life and immortality beyond the grave. We are called upon to prove that we are men. What am I to argue? That it is wrong to make men brutes, to rob them of their liberty, to work them without wages, to keep them ignorant of their relations to their fellow man, to beat them with sticks, to flay their flesh with the lash, to load their limbs with irons, to hunt them with dogs, to sell them at auction, to sunder their families, to knock out their teeth, to burn their flesh, to starve them into obedience and submission to their masters. Must I argue that a system thus marked with blood and stained with pollution is wrong? No, I will not. I have better employment of my time and strength than such arguments would imply. What, to the American slave, is the 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him, more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is a constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness, swelling vanity, your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence, your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery, your prayers, your hymns, your sermons, and thanksgivings, with all of your religious parades and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation of savages. There is not a nation on this earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of the United States at this very hour. Go where you may, search where you will, roam through all the monarchies and despotisms of the old world. Travel through South America. Search out every abuse. And when you have found the last, lay your facts by the side of everyday practices of this nation. And you will say with me that for revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy, America reigns without rival. And that's our Black Fact for today.
Keep listening to Black Focus Radio for more dynamic Black facts, our culture, our history, our people. On TuneInRadio.com.
Wow. That right there was some powerful stuff. Because, this particular speech by the great orator Fredrick Douglas, was made on Independence Day in 1852. Now, I'm going to repost this. This is the full speech. I'm going to post this, and I want you all to go out and read it for yourselves. Now, I know I put a lot of emotion because it's every time I've read this now for the last 30 years in various circles. I've read it to myself. I've read it on this radio station. I've read it on other radio shows. It always is emotional for me. But even more so today, as we look around this country, and you tell me where it's not the same as it was in 1852. You tell me. You tell me when Fredrick Douglass was making these, and I want to go back to, let me make sure I go back to the right paragraph. I want to read this paragraph again. For the present, it is enough to affirm the equal manhood of the Negro race. Is it not as astonishing as that, while we are plowing, planting, reaping, using all kinds of mechanical tools, erecting houses, constructing bridges, building ships, working in metals of brass, iron, and copper, and secretaries, having among us lawyers, doctors, ministers, poets, authors, editors, orators, and teachers, and that while we are engaged in all manner of enterprises common to other men, digging gold in California, capturing the whale in the Pacific, feeding sheep and cattle on a hillside, living, moving, acting, thinking, planning, living in families as husbands, wives, and children, and above all, confessing and worshiping the Christian's God and looking hopefully for life and immortality beyond the grave, we are called upon to prove that we are men. Damn. Think about that. Fredrick Douglass made this piece in 1852. And here we are today in 2019. And we are asking that very same question. If I simply remove the word Negro and put in black, it speaks to today. We are called upon to prove that we are men. I asked you all yesterday, how much has really changed in America? Just because you can go and eat at their restaurants, just because you don't have to go and stand in a line that has black water fountain versus white water fountain, just because you don't have to go through a door, a back door as opposed to the front door. Y'all remember the other day when I played A Change Is Gonna Come? Y'all remember that? Remember the story behind A Change Is Gonna Come? Y'all remember that? It was written by Sam Cooke. It is one of the most powerful songs of the 60s. Even as I sit here today and I hear the melody in my mind, I'm getting chills. Because even in 1962, when Sam Cooke, one of the greatest singers of our time, could not stay at a Holiday Inn because he was black and had to go and stay at the Black Hotel, Sam Cooke wrote that song. So my brothers and sisters, so while you all are sitting out there feeling comfortable and thinking everything is honky-dory, I beg you to go back and reread this Fredrick Douglass piece. Go back and reread it again and substitute the word Negro for black. Substitute that word and then close your eyes and ask yourself, are we still living in 1852? Because I would argue we are. Yeah, I know some of y'all like to say, well, it ain't that bad, David. Well, did you see the video of the kid that was shot by police in Jacksonville? What about the video in Memphis? What about the video right here in Little Rock? What about the video in Cleveland, Ohio? What about the video of Sandra Bland in Dallas, Texas? What about the numerous videos that I could go on? What about Ayanna Rightly, who was a 7-year-old who was in her bed sleep when the police stormed her house and shot and killed her? And none of those police have went to jail. Just like they did in the 60s, in the 50s, in the 40s. Those people were raiding black people's homes. They were killing black people, and not one of them spent time in jail. You tell me again how things have changed. Oh, I know I can drive a nice car. Oh, yeah, I can go and eat at a white person's restaurant, but deep down, they don't really want you there. We've seen story after story over the last few years of white restaurants doing things to black people to tell them. I remember a story where a white restaurant owner even threw a chair at a black man because he didn't want him there. I remember a story where a group of Delta Sigma Thetas was at a restaurant, and because they dared to ask about their check, they were thrown out of the restaurant. I know for a fact that my brothers and sisters in Atlanta was protesting at Houston's restaurant because Houston's restaurant didn't want black people to come there en masse. So I'm going to ask you again, because quite often when brothers like myself and others out there I like to think that I'm the canary in the coal mine. And if you all don't know where that phrase came from, back in the early days, when you dig so deep in the earth, it begins to release gases that are toxic to men. And quite often there would be miners who would end up dying because they inhaled methane gas, which is odorless, and you can't see it, and it's invisible. So they came up with an idea that every time they would go down in a mine, they would take a canary. I'm serious, a bird. This is where the saying, a canary in a coal mine, comes from. And there would be somebody assigned to keep an eye on the canary. So if that canary if it stopped singing, if it stopped walking, if it stopped flapping its wings, if it keeled over and died, that was the sign to say, we need to get out of here. So people like me, I consider myself the canary in the coal mine. I'm down in the mines already. I've done the research. I'm not the only one that's out there who's done the research. But those of us, and there are many who have done the research, who have went to our people and said, hey, look, here's what we need to do. We have to fix this problem. But no one is paying attention to the canary. Everybody's saying, oh, that's just a canary. That's a bird. That doesn't mean, he just died. That doesn't mean anything. Really? My brothers and sisters, I do this every day because I love my people. Let me explain something to you all. I don't get paid for what I do here. I'm here every day doing this show. I spend 10 hours a week on this radio station talking to you about history and culture and our people. This is not something I take lightly. I love black people. And when I've read the Fredrick Douglas piece for the last 3 years, and every time I read it, I'm near tears. I'm near tears now. Because I'm so frustrated. I'm so tired of fighting this battle. I would like to know that my son and his children, my grandchildren, are going to grow up in a free society. But you know, freedom doesn't happen without a struggle. Freedom doesn't happen without a fight. I am stunned that our black people continue to lay down instead of standing up. I am stunned that we allow our black children to be murdered in the streets and we simply throw our hands up and say we can't do nothing when that is nothing more than a lie. You have been led to believe that whatever happens around you, you have no control. That's a lie. You are the masters of your fate. You are the captains of your ships. You have to just walk into it and believe it. You cannot sit around and continue to watch black boys being murdered in the streets and say, I do nothing. You cannot go to the white man and ask the white man to fix that problem because they created the problem. Why would they fix it? They're making millions of dollars off of you. I told you part of the reason that I love talking to black teens is because I'm hoping that something I say, something that I do will empower them to say, hey, I got a choice. I can be like Mr. Coleman, or I can be my homeboy that just got killed in the streets. Because see, I could have went down that path. At one point, my brother in this city was the biggest drug dealer in Little Rock. Those of you who know me personally, you know my brother. I could have went down that path. But I chose that, hey, I want to go to school. I don't want to live that life that my brother. I will never forget the numerous times that he showed up at the door where he was unconscious, where a friend just brought him and dropped him off. I'll never forget when I walked into the emergency room that night after he had been shot in the mouth with a .38 caliber pistol. And I said to myself, I don't want to be there. Now, all we have to do as a collective group of people say we don't want to be there. We cannot continue to go to white people to try and fix the problems that they created against us. That was by design. I tell you all the time, there are no airfields in the projects, in the hood. There are no boat docks in the hood. There are no gun manufacturers in the hood. All of that stuff was put in our neighborhoods for us to destroy one another because they understood what white supremacy had already began. Is that if I can control your mind, then I can control your body. So first of all, I got to teach you that you're not who you are. You didn't evolve from kings and queens. As a matter of fact, I went out on Russell Wilson's Twitter page last week again. Because Russell Wilson posted on his Twitter page that he is a descendant of slaves. No, you're not. The people that were in slavery were kings and queens and architects and doctors and builders and all kinds of things. Those people were sold into slavery. They were not slaves. So when you minimize your existence by thinking that you are an ex-slave, I told you all a few weeks ago that, hey, that's why I don't subscribe to the ADOS philosophy. African descendants of slaves. You might be a descendant of slaves, but I'm not a descendant of slaves, nor are my children a descendant of slaves. It's all about a mindset. As a man thinketh, so is he. I'm sorry if I walk around as if I'm arrogant. I'm sorry if I walk around and you feel like I think I'm better than you. No, you can feel the same way I feel. The only difference in me and you is that I know my history. I didn't allow white people to teach me history. I went out and researched it for myself. I needed to know. You want to save your black children? Teach them black history. Teach them that they are not descendants of slaves. Teach them that the number system evolved in Africa. Teach them that the current jurisprudence justice system that we live under today was evolved from Africa. Hello? There is no reason why a black man should be killing another black man over a drug that the white man is making the money off of. There's no reason. There's no reason why a brother should kill another brother because you stepped on his shoes. There is no reason why a black woman should shoot and kill a fetus of another black woman because she's playing around with her man. See, the reason that you can do that is because you actually see that person in you and you don't like yourself. You don't respect yourself. So when you see another black man, you say, hey, I don't mind killing him because he's nothing but a nigger. Remember the piece I read to you last week about why you should never use that word? It's evolution. But every day, many of you out there, what's up, my nig? Many of you sisters, I got to get me a good nigga. Not understanding that you're doing nothing more than reinforcing the negative, the hate that word represents. Folks, it's about a mind shift. It's about a mind change. It's about a mindectomy. The old mind that was put into us based on indoctrination has to go away. It makes no sense to me that black people don't support black people. The only reason they don't is because they have been indoctrinated not to do so. Every other ethnic group supports their group. Hispanics, Asians, Arabs. I always like to use the story of the Mario boat lift, and that's when back years ago in the 80s when they boat lifted all of those Vietnamese citizens from Vietnam and brought them to the United States. And they purposely put them in separate places around the United States. And the argument or the philosophy behind that was, we want to separate them so that they can assimilate into American culture. And I always tell the story of when I was at WHBQ in Memphis, when they put them in a certain neighborhood in Memphis, And I've told this story before, and we were doing a show on Saturdays. It was a swap meet show where people could call up and say, I've got this for sale, or I got that for sale. Call this number. Or if a pet was missing, they could call up and say, hey, I have a brown Labrador retriever that was in this neighborhood. He's missing. If you see him, call this number. The curious thing started happening. We started getting more and more and more calls about missing dogs from a certain neighborhood. At the time, we didn't put anything two and two together. But we had a young lady who called the station and told us what potentially the problem was. Why were all of those dogs coming up missing in that particular neighborhood? Come to find out that they had moved quite a few of those Vietnamese refugees in that area. And whether you like it or not, in that country, eating dogs is part of their culture. So I imagine those Vietnamese thought that they had died and gone to heaven because all those dogs walk in that neighborhood. They were actually capturing them and killing them. This is a true story, folks. The representative actually went into their homes, opened their refrigerators, and saw some of these animals. Now, I'm not telling you that story to gross you out. I'm telling you that story to tell you about culture. So as we moved forward, come to find out that there were other Vietnamese who were moving to that area who was not even assigned to that area. And then when they did studies around the country, what did the federal government realize? That all of those Vietnamese that they had airlifted from Vietnam and brought to America had somehow or another found their way to one another, where many of them migrated from where they were brought or dropped off to other areas of America that was more conducive to them. I tell you that story because we are the only people that don't want to live without people. Right now, this neighborhood where this station lives, a block from where I am, was black for as long as I can remember. I grew up in Little Rock. I rode my bicycle all over this city. I knew people all over this city. Whether they went to school with me or not, people knew David Coleman and that guy who rode that green bicycle. And when I didn't ride, I ran. That's how I stayed in shape. That's why I could literally outlast most people that I played against. I had better stamina. But right behind us, that black neighborhood is now about to become white. All of that property has been sold. And you all are mad. Some of you all are upset. I'm telling you, gentrification doesn't happen if black people don't sell their property. Gentrification doesn't happen if black people get politically active and say, hey, these are our neighborhoods. This is what we demand from our tax dollars. But black people in Little Rock has failed to do that. So when you go north of 630, oh, it's immaculate. But when you go south of 630, it looks like a bombing run has occurred. That's us. We are the ones that's causing that problem. Because I don't want to live with black folks. Because, see, I can move out to Chenal and look down my nose at y'all. Look at them niggas. They struggling. I done made it. But then what happens? Your son gets pulled over by the cops. They don't give a damn that you live in Chenal. They just see his black skin. And they blow his brains out. Doesn't matter that you live in Chenal. Doesn't matter that you live in Bryant. It doesn't matter that you live in Benton. All they see is your black skin. So you want to fix this problem? Because if you want to fix it, then you got to get busy. You got to get busy on a number of fronts, but mainly you got to start supporting anything black. I'm going to support it. You know what? I was actually watching the Women's World Cup yesterday, and I was cheering for the black player to score a goal. Sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I am 100% black. Everything that this country has done against me as a black man. So I'm sure as hell not going to celebrate a 4th of July. I'm just not going to do it. You can do it. Go right ahead. Keep the cycle going. Keep the lie going. And we'll never be free. 855-525-5683 is the number. Got to go take a break. Every time I read that Fredrick Douglas piece, I get more and more upset because I sit around and I watch. The potential of black people is enormous. But because that thing between our ears, we do nothing. We pray, we march, we cry, we die. Back in a moment.
And Arkansas in Clark County since 1966. At Mitchell Funeral Home, they understand that the funeral is a celebration of life and legacy, so the entire staff takes great pride in the caring, personal, and professional services they provide. Cremations, funeral plans, burial policy, life insurance, notary, and monument sales are just a few of the services they offer. Flexible packages are available as well. Mitchell Funeral Home appreciates the trust and confidence placed in them and will continue to enhance their services so as to serve you better. Call now. Get connected. 870-246-2611. That's 870-246-2611. Call, click, or come by. MitchellFuneralServices.com. Don't wait till we need it. Call us now. Let's walk through this together. 870-246-2611. It's quality you can appreciate and service you can depend on at Mitchell Funeral Home.
Hi, I'm attorney Gil Thompson from the Thompson Law Firm, and I want to help you through legal matters. Whether it's criminal defense, bankruptcy, personal injury, or family law, I want to help you. I can be reached at 501-503-5095. Don't face your legal issues alone. You need an attorney whose primary objective is to provide you with the best legal representation. Our office address is 415 North Virginia, 710 in Little Rock. I'm attorney Gil Thompson, and I want to provide you with the best legal representation.
I'm so glad I found the Kick Above. It's like my very own personal training studio. A Kick Above removed the guesswork and intimidation and offered me a very supportive and structured environment specific to my personal goals. Kim Leopard and her certified personal trainers even offered nutritional guidelines for my personal workout. It's about me at A Kick Above. Call 501-868-8850 or go to akickabove.com. Now, what am I wearing tonight? Thanks to A Kick Above, I look marvelous.
Hi, this is Alvin from Habibi's 4317 East Broadway in North Little Rock. We still have the green top at your very next stop. The same great service, but more honor. Give us a call, 501-663-1553 or 664-2992, or call our toll-free number, 1-877-HABIBI-1. Diapers, pull-ups, hospital bills, wheelchairs, Simply Fit, diabetic supplies, underpads, and more. Your durable medical supply center.
Guess who's on JoyNet Radio? It's your girl LMJ with Coffee Conversations with Lakeisha. Coffee Conversations with Lakeisha is an interactive online daily devotional that rightly divides the Word of God. It's Kingdom, baby. Join us Monday through Friday at 5 a.m. Central Standard Time. That's weekday mornings, 5 a.m. at joynetradio.com.
By the river in a little tent. Ever since it's been a long time coming. Welcome back to the show. I just needed to play a little bit of that because I'm in my feelings right now. I'm tired. And maybe I shouldn't have read that Fredrick Douglas piece. But I'm tired. But I know a change is going to come. You know, it's that saying that, when you're at the end of the rope, what do? You tie a knot in it and you hang on. Black people are at the end of their ropes. They've already tied a knot in the end of the rope. We are tired. I'm tired. I want to make my point to you. I've got two young people in the studio today, our interns. I'm going to ask them a question about a story that just broke. So I'm going to ask you all this. Ivy and Clayton. What would happen let me ask you first, Clayton. What do you think would happen if, your friend, your best friend, went out and he raped a young lady? He's going to jail, right?
Going to prison.
Okay. Ivy, from your perspective as a woman, if, God forbid, if something that happened to you like that, what would you expect what would happen to that young man? For him to go to jail, right? Yeah. What if he was a white guy?
Then I would probably think it was a little less of a chance. Probation or something.
So, those of you who are listening, the fact that both of you all said that should disturb us all. It should disturb us all. But sadly, what you all just said is exactly what happens to a lot of white guys. In fact, we have a Supreme Court justice right now who raped a young woman when she was drunk, and he's on the Supreme Court. We have a president of the United States who is accused of raping 22 women, yet he's still president of the United States. But let me bring it more home to you. Let me just read this story to you. A family court judge in New Jersey has been roundly admonished by the state's appeals court for ruling that a teenager accused of raping an intoxicated girl and then sharing the video of the assault with friends deserved leniency because he came from a good family. He was an Eagle Scout and he attended an excellent school. He is clearly a candidate for not just college, but probably for a good college, says Judge James Troiano. Okay? So they don't want the district attorney. They don't want the district attorney to file charges against him as an adult. Now you all weren't here, but about 2 weeks ago, do you all remember the story I had about the black guy who was dating a girl? He was 18, she was underage. They had sexual relations, and he shared the video with his friends on the football team. What do y'all think that black guy is today? He's in jail. He's in jail. So that letter from Fredrick Douglas speaks to what's going on today in America. If you're white, you can commit all kinds of crimes that you want. If you're black, in fact, you don't have to commit a crime. Let me tell you the story about the brother who had double pneumonia. And one of the things that they like, what a doctor will want you to do, is when you have pneumonia, they want you to walk. And the reason they want you to walk is because that helps loosen up the congestion in your lungs. So this young brother, along with a friend of his, were walking outside of a hospital. The police arrested him. The brother said, well, I'm in the hospital. The police claimed that he was trying to steal hospital equipment. Now, here was a black man walking down the street with an IV attached to his arm where the medicine was going in his arm in a hospital gown. Now, if I'm going to steal medical equipment, I'm not going to steal it in a hospital gown, and I sure as hell am not going to steal them ugly-ass hospital gowns. But because he was black, they just assumed that he was a thief, and they arrested him. And the sad thing about it, I saw an update on the case this morning. The hospital refuses to apologize. The hospital. The police department refuses to apologize. So, this is America. So if you heard me read that Fredrick Douglas piece, if you have not read that Fredrick Douglas piece, maybe you need to go back and read it, black politicians. Maybe you need to go back and read it, black ministers. Maybe you need to go back and read it, black leaders, or so-called, I should have preferenced those titles. Because you cannot read that Fredrick Douglas piece and believe that we're free today. The very things that Fredrick Douglass talked about in that piece, we are experiencing it today. (855) 525-5683 is the number. We got to go in out and take the top of the hour break. Yeah, I'm bringing the rain. Y'all go ahead and celebrate the 4th. Y'all go ahead and be happy that you weren't free and your people were being chained to trees and set afire. Your people were being hung off of bridges. Black women, pregnant black women, were being raped, their babies cut out of their bodies, their babies riddled with bullets. Y'all go ahead and celebrate. I ain't mad at you. I'm going to laugh at you just like white folks laugh at you. Back in a moment.
Talk to you more about how many people have come up to you and said, hey, I didn't know you had a business. Yeah, that can happen when you don't advertise. I have a solution for it. Advertise on joinetradio.com and let the world know that you're in business.
This is just amazing.
I know what you're thinking. Advertise.
Prosecutors say the boy continued to, not only did he rape the girl, there's a part that I forgot to add here. What did he say? He said, here's what he said. This was the first time he had ever had sex. His first thought was to rape a girl. And in the video, he states, I didn't imagine that the first time I ever had sex, it would be rape. You get that? So he knew he was raping her.
We are here to assist you.
But he was bold enough to put it on video and make the point that, hey, I lost my virginity raping a girl. How sick is that?
I can be reached at 503
No.
5095.
The judge said he's a good kid.
You need an attorney whose primary objective is to provide you with basically work. Our office address is 415 Norfolk Henry, Suite 710.
Just boggles my mind how we as black people can sit around and see these things happen and think that we free.
I'm so glad I found the kick above. It's like
As you all said, if that would have been a black boy,
the guesswork and intimidation and offered me a very supportive
let the doorknob hit you where the dog should have bit you.
to my personal goals. Kim Lever and her
He would not see the light of day for decades.
personal workout.
But because he's a white kid, oh, he's a good kid. You're not a good kid if you're raping women.
Or go to kickabove.com.
I'm sorry. You're not a good kid if you're raping women.
I look marvelous.
Mitchell Funeral Home
amazing to me.
represents all of Arkadelphia and Arkansas in Clark County since 1966. At Mitchell Funeral Home, they understand that the funeral is a celebration of life and legacy, so the entire staff takes great pride in the caring, personal, and professional services they provide. Cremations, funeral planning, burial policy, life insurance, notary, and monument sales are just a few of the services they offer. Flexible packages are available.
That just angers me.
Mitchell Funeral Home appreciates the trust and confidence placed in them and will continue to enhance their services so as to serve you better. Call now. Get connected. 870-246-2611. That's 870-246-2611. Call, click, or come by. MitchellFuneralServices.com. Don't wait till we're needed. Call us now. Let's walk through this together. 870-246-2611. It's quality you can appreciate and service you can depend on at Mitchell Funeral Home.
The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, the surrounding areas, and the nation.
So I forgot to add the news cycle for part B into the system. But again, you troubleshoot. I'm going to play it from here. So I was sitting here looking for it, and I'm saying, wait a minute, where is it? Then it hit me. We didn't add it.
With today's Black Focus headline news. In today's headlines, 2 women saw a man about to go for hot on Chiboy overpass and preventing him from taking his own life. The National Park Service is diverting $2.5 million in fees intended to improve parks across the creek over to cover costs associated with President Trump's Independence Day celebration. After nearly 2 years, the State Department finally responds to increased headline alleged alcohol poisoning of U.S. tourists. Cabin man sentenced to 35 years in prison for child pornography. That's today's Black Focus headline news. Now it's time to get focused with more Black Focus Radio.
All right, welcome back to the second hour of the show. I was briefly talking to Jemiah and Clayton in the break. I want to read a little bit more of this story to you because I want you all to be just as shocked as I am. Now, let me be honest with you. I'm not shocked that this is happening. I'm shocked that people continue to allow this to happen. I'm going to read you what the prosecutor said about the young white rapist, because he's a rapist. Okay? Prosecutors say the boy filmed himself penetrating the 16-year-old girl from behind at a dark basement party in New Jersey. The victim was allegedly so intoxicated at the time that she staggered as she walked. Okay, so let me stop right there for a moment. As a father of a daughter, what I taught my daughter is, number one, you never get to a point where you cannot control yourself. That means getting filthy drunk. That's part of the reason that I drink beer, but I can't tell you when the last time I've been drunk. And the last time I want to say it was over my brother's house, and it was at his house. So when I got too intoxicated, I went and laid down. Okay? So number one, young ladies particularly, I know today's climate says you can do what men do, but you are still vulnerable. So you should never be out there drinking and getting high or whatever the case may be to the point where you don't know what's going on. Never. Okay? The defendant allegedly shared the cell phone video with his friends with a text message that read, "When your first time having sex was rape." Y'all get that? So here's a guy who knew what he was doing because he shared the video with his friends and said, "When your first time having sex was rape." So you know what that conjures up in my mind? It conjures up to me that he knew that he was going to rape that girl. It conjures up to me, and I don't know, I wasn't at the party, but a sick mind like that, I would not doubt that he was one of the people who was feeding this young girl alcohol. Get her drunk, man. She won't know. Get her drunk. She won't know. Because the fact that he videotaped it and he said, "Your first time having sex was rape." Prosecutors say the boy continued to circulate the video months after the alleged assault, but denied it when confronted by the victim. So wait a minute. So see, he just did a Donald Trump on us. He records a video. He circulates it for months. And then when the young lady confronts him about it, he denied the assault. Now wait a minute. I can see with my own eyes that video. The Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office recommended in September 2017 that this little criminal be tried as an adult because of his actions at the party were both sophisticated and predatory. That's exactly what I just said. He knew what he was doing. He probably pursued this young lady. I would not doubt that this young man probably fed her drinks. And you know, in white circles, GHB is very, very prevalent, the date rape drug. The other thing that I taught my daughter is that you never take a drink from someone you don't know. In fact, unless you sit there and watch them make that drink, I don't care if he's your friend, You don't take that drink. I don't care if it's Kool-Aid. I don't care if it's soda pop. You don't take that drink. More importantly, if you have to go to the bathroom, you either finish your drink, you take it with you, or when you come back, you get another drink. Are you listening to me, Jemiah? This is very important. I'm saying this from a father's point of view. This is what I taught my daughter. Because there are some evil people out here, and they're not grown folks. They are people your age. Remember yesterday we talked about that survey where you figured out that people that you think your friends don't really like you. Y'all remember us talking about that? Just because they, my friend this. No, they really don't like you. Filming a cell phone video while committing an assault was a deliberate act of debasement. And in months that followed, he lied to the victim while simultaneously disseminating the video and unabashedly sharing the nature of his conduct therein. There was neither a childish misinterpretation of the situation, nor was it a misunderstanding of his behavior. It was calculated and cruel. However, the judge denied the waiver to try the defendant as an adult. The judge says that he's an Eagle Scout and comes from a good family and who put him in an excellent school where he was doing extremely well. Really? As for the sexually explicit messages about the alleged assault that the teen had penned, Troiano said it was just a 16-year-old kid saying stupid crap to his friends. Fortunately, the state appellate court disagreed with Troiano. In a blistering decision last month, the court reversed Troiano's ruling that the juvenile came from a good family and had good test scores. We assume would not condemn the juveniles who do not come from good families and do not have good test scores from withstanding waiver application. As the NewJersey.com stated, a few days after the reversal, the appellate court reversed another family court judge's decision in an unrelated sexual assault case and similarly rebuked the judge for her ruling. So this is a problem. Now you understand why Donald. See, I believe that white men think it's okay to rape women. Now I know what you're saying. Oh, Dave, I can't believe you said, oh, that's terrible. Y'all always know that I have history to back me up, right? Let me ask you a question. Since you think what I just said is terrible, how many little black girls were raped by grown-ass white men during slavery? Hello? How many black girls were, and by the way, black boys were raped during the Middle Passage? If you say, well, that didn't happen, well, how do you think we got all these light-skinned black people around this country and around the world? So, white men have a history of rape in America. And they also have a history of condoning rape of a woman in America. And this, by this Judge Troiano, is prima facie evidence that it's okay. Oh, he was just playing. Y'all remember the case of the guy who raped the girl at Stanford? She was drunk. She had passed out by the dumpster. He was just walking by and saw her and said, oh, look. Instead of being concerned about whether or not this person was dead, whether or not this person was ill, it came to his mind that, hey, why don't I rape her? Hello. Remember that judge too? He gave that guy a slap on the wrist. Remember the guy in Texas who was driving while intoxicated? Killed some people. He's not spending time in jail either. By the way, he was white. And the judge said he was suffering from a new word that I had never heard called affluency. Now, I like to think that I'm a wordsmith. I like to think that I'm pretty versed on words. Now, quite often, I'm weird like this. When I hear a word that I don't understand, I used to write it down. And then when I could get to a dictionary, I would go and look it up. But now I just Google. Boop, 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 boop. What does that mean? I didn't find the word affluency. It didn't exist. A judge created a word to keep a young white boy who had killed 3 people while he was driving his dad's fancy car. He created a word to keep him from being convicted. He called it affluency. That means that because his folks was rich, tell you what, let me just do this. Let's see what Google says. I'm going to tell you what I think it means. As a matter of fact, it's now in the dictionary. Let's see let's see. Let's see if it comes up. So I just went out to Google, and under the free dictionary, affluency, an obsolete word for affluence. Let's see what another one. Let's see what the Merriam-Webster says. In fact, they don't even have a definition in Merriam-Webster. But this judge came up with a new word and said because he had grown up with an affluent lifestyle, that means that his mama and daddy was rich. They had basically given him anything and everything that he wanted. He's a victim of affluency, so he doesn't have to go to jail. Is that our justice system? When you tell me that justice is blind, when you tell me that every man and woman will be treated equal under the justice system, why is it that we continually see white boys, white men, be able to evade the justice system? We have one sitting in the White House right now, one who has taken this country down a path that we have never seen before. Well, let's say in modern times, let's put it that way, because there's been some bad times in this country, let's not forget. He has clearly violated the law. He has snubbed his nose at subpoenas. Even his staff has snubbed their noses at subpoenas. He has been accused of raping or fondling at least 22 women. At least. And the reason I say at least because quite often it's more. Those were just the 22 that were strong enough and bold enough to come forward. But he was able to become president. And then you hear what a lot of white folks say? It don't matter what he's done in his personal life. I just want him to be president. You know where that comes from? That comes from Barack Obama. White people for the first time in their lives saw a black president and realized that, hey, yeah, we are going to be a minority. We got to get a white boy in there. It don't matter what it is, what he does. We just need a white boy in there to set this country back the way it was. And sure enough, look what he has done. This president has set this country back at least 50 years. The damage that this president has done to this country and race relations in this country will not be soon forgotten. But it's okay because he's a white boy. Let me give you a couple of other examples because I need you all to understand that only when you're going to white folks to save black folks, these are examples where they're not going to save you. How many times have we seen where a white cop kills a black kid and he doesn't spend any time in jail? As a matter of fact, a trial is about to take place right now in Dallas. Y'all remember Botham Jean, don't you? You remember the black brother who was working for one of the Wall Street companies, who was sitting in his very nice apartment? In fact, he was actually sleeping in his apartment. And a poor little dainty white girl who was masquerading as a police officer somehow or another goes into his house, shoots and kills him, and everybody tries to come down on Botham Jean. Oh, well, they found some marijuana in his apartment. So what? Nothing's wrong with smoking pot, by the way. Oh, it is when black people do it, because many black folks are sitting in jail for selling and smoking a joint, yet white people today are making millions of dollars off of legalized marijuana. That's another example that just popped up. It's amazing when you really pay attention. Example after example shows us how white people think about us. But let me get back to Botham Jean real fast. Because see, Botham Jean had done nothing but come home from work, take a shower, and go to sleep. Yet a white police officer breaks into his home, shoots and kills him, and the system tried to blame Botham Jean. And they're still today trying to figure out a way to get this white girl off. See, this is one that they can't explain. They used to say, just like the brother I talked about earlier who was walking outside the hospital, they said, oh, yeah, you're trying to steal hospital equipment. We got to arrest you. This is not like Philando Castile, who said, hey, I got a license to carry, and the police officer said, bang, 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 you're dead. This is not the brother who was selling Lucy's in New York, and the police said, hey, choke, 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 you're dead. And none of them. You see, the white cop who killed Walter Scott, see, he couldn't get away with it. Because the video evidence, although we've seen video evidence before, but we saw him planting evidence. We saw him planting a gun, because his argument was going to be, well, he pulled a gun on me. Although Walter Scott was running away from him and he was shot in the back. So they had to convict him. But yeah, let's convict one, but let's free 1,000. But when you look at the black police officer, Muhammad Noor in Minnesota, when he tried to claim I was in fear for my life, they gave him 12 and a half years after killing a little dainty white woman. Hello? Y'all still celebrating the 4th yet? Y'all getting the steaks ready? The firecrackers, we used to call them back in the day. Y'all celebrating? I can give you another story. I told you the story about the brother who was helping an autistic man who had escaped his custody, and he was outside trying to gather him. Someone called the police. The police said, get on the ground. The brother not only got on the ground, he laid on his back and stuck his hands up in the air. And the police shot him. Yeah, he was black. They didn't shoot the autistic guy. Because, by the way, you know, the autistic guy in that case, he actually had something in his hand. The brother was laying on his back with his hand straight up in the air. But the autistic guy was sitting on the ground with something in his hand. Why didn't the police officer misconstrue or assume that that was a weapon? Oh, that's because the guy that was holding that toy, which is what it was, he had light skin. He looked white. Y'all go ahead and celebrate the 4th. I'm simply tired of being lied to. Give you another example. So, check this out. A man who was recently convicted of a violent road rage incident turned up to court with blackface makeup for his sentencing hearing before delivering a bizarre, racially charged rant. Mark Char, who is black, claimed that he was wearing blackface because he was being treated like a black man by the courts. Y'all remember that situation where the doctor was in the airport and he went off on the flight attendants and she called the police? This was a white guy. In fact, this was a white doctor. And when the police grabbed him and was getting ready to arrest him, he began to scream out in the airport, "I'm being treated like a black man. Help me, help me. I'm being treated like a black man." Treated like a black man. So are you saying that white people know that black men are being treated badly? Of course they do. Of course they do. But here is a white boy who is bold enough to go to court, put on blackface, and mock black people. Hmm. 855-525-5683. Just amazing to me. Just amazing to me as we live in this country. And then I know a lot of white folks like, so, well, if you don't approve, if you don't like it, go back to Africa. Well, let me help you out on that a little bit too, bro. Like, bro, did you know that close to 90% of the people that were enslaved were already here? There were quite a few that they brought over. Part of the reason that they had to go to Africa and start importing those Africans is because the black people that were already here, they didn't make good slaves. They killed their masters. They had riots. And by the way, even if they weren't already here, the fact that my ancestors built this country, this is my country. In fact, this country is more my country than it is your country. So I'm not going back to Africa. I'll tell you what, why don't you go back to York? Hello? Don't want to entertain that yet, do you? Check this out. Howard University student and aspiring dentist killed by car being chased by the police. So I'm just curious, will the police suffer the consequences of this? I'm reminded of the case in Louisiana where the sister was out for a joyride with her baby in the car, minding her own business. Out of the blue, a car slams into her. It destroys the car, injures her and her child to the point where her child ended up dying. Y'all know what the police did in this case? Let me tell you what they did. Apparently the sister didn't have the baby strapped into a car seat the correct way. She was in a car seat, but apparently the child wasn't strapped in correctly. So you know what the police did? Instead of charging the police officer who slammed into her car and killed that baby, they charged the mother for involuntary manslaughter. Jemiah's eyebrows just went up. She like, what the hell? She didn't say that. I said that. They charged the mother. Put her in jail. Now wait a minute. Sister out joyriding, enjoying her afternoon with her child. Car slams into her. It's a police car. Her child is killed. She's injured. But the police say, oh, you know what? The reason the child is dead is because you didn't put the child in a car seat correctly. Regardless of the fact that, hey, well, maybe that child is dead because that big ass 2,000-pound car slammed into her car. Maybe that's why the child is dead. You ever thought about that? Louisiana? This is America. Y'all celebrating though, right? Y'all celebrating tomorrow, right? Go right ahead. Enjoy yourself. Save me some barbecue. Hey, you invite me over to eat some barbecue. I'll sure eat it. Now, I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be in Kansas City. You know, that's the home of barbecue. So I'm going to go to Gates Barbecue tomorrow and get me some Q. But this is the America we live in. So y'all celebrating? Let me tell you some more about the America we live in. Since we celebrating the 4th, July 4th, some of y'all call it. So imagine you being a homeowner. Imagine you owning a home. Or imagine you have a car and you need a mechanic. And you call this person to fix your water heater in your home. Imagine. And a person shows up at your house. That person is white. You're black. That person shows up at your house, and on the back of his truck, he has a Confederate flag. Wait a minute. What would you do? Would you say, hey, welcome, would you like some tea and crumpets? Would you like some cold water? Or would you say, I'm not doing business with you? Well, this young lady, her name is Allison Brown. She and her husband, they live in Georgia. And I tell people all the time that outside of Atlanta, Georgia is one of the most racist states in America. I know we get caught up in thinking because all we usually do, black people usually do when they go to Atlanta is go to Atlanta. You know, Forsyth County is a little less than an hour outside of Atlanta. That was one of the most racist counties in America at one point. Hello? So this guy shows up, has the unmitigated gall. Now, it's not a small Confederate flag. It's a huge Confederate flag that is flying on the back of his truck. He drives to a black woman's house, a black man and black woman's house, with a Confederate flag flying on the back of his truck, and expects the black family to say, hey, y'all, come on in. Hello. Fortunately for this sister and her husband, they basically said that dog ain't gonna hunt in this yard. See you, wouldn't want to be you. That's what we all ought to do. We all, right now, this is why I'm so tough on white politicians. Right now, we ought to all assume as black people that they're flying Confederate flags in their trucks. And until they prove that they're not welcome to the party. And what I mean by prove is by their actions. It's kind of like dating. You can say, hey, baby, I love you, baby, I love you, I love you. But then you're going and screwing around on your baby. You don't love her. How you prove you love her is that when all those women that come up to you and they say, hey, I want to get with you, you say, no, I got a woman. She mine. I love her. I ain't doing nothing. In fact, get out of my face. That's love. So just because white folks listen to your music, just because white folks can dance, just because they invited you to their party and you're the only black one there, that don't mean they give a damn about you. I speak from experience. Remember, I was the first black talk show host in the state of Tennessee. The entire state. Prior to me getting that job, my program director came to me and said, "Hey, Dave, you deserve this job, but I don't know if Nashville will be ready for a black talk show host." Those were his exact words. So he was reticent about even allowing me to have the job. It was okay that I talked every now and then on the air, but the fact that I would be, my show, it would be David Coleman and Greg Pogue, or Greg Pogue and David Coleman, they were worried. And I knew for a fact that a lot of those white folks were not my friends. But here's the one thing that I made sure of. You could go to Nashville, and anyone that listened to that show would tell you that although David was on a white radio station, David had no problems about being black. None. And until you as black people get that every day you are black, and every day that white people look at you, they know you're black. They're going to treat you subservient. So yeah, I walked around like I had diamond mines pumping in my backyard. Because I am rich. I'm mentally rich. There is nothing you can say to me, white folks, that will make me feel second fiddle to any of you. But that's because I've read my history. In fact, there's nothing you can say to any of my children, either one of them. My daughter will put you in your place really quickly. So will my son. Tell you a quick story about my daughter. About 2 years ago, when a lot of these Black Lives Matter protests began, my daughter she was quoted and featured in a national magazine. I've forgotten the name of it. U.S. News and World Reports. They were in Chicago. My daughter lives in Chicago. As I told you, that my daughter has a master's degree, soon to get her PhD. She's working in a job that requires a PhD, but she's just got a master's, and a part of the reason she's working in that job is because of her intellect. In other words, she's smarter than they knew. So when she did the interview, she got a call from a white boy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he began to harass her on Facebook. She called me one day and she said, "Dad, this guy, I did the interview, and this white guy out of Pittsburgh has been harassing me and stalking me." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, you said he's on Facebook?" "Yeah." I said, "Send me his name." She sent me his name. I then went to his Facebook page, found his number. I called him. And I said, "Let me tell you something, my friend." I said, "That young lady that you are stalking and harassing," I said, "that's going to stop now." "But what if it doesn't?" I said, "You don't want to know what happens if it doesn't." I said, "But let me tell you something. The difference in that black young lady is that she's got a dad. And her dad is a mean SOB. He takes no prisoners when it comes to his children. Now, I'm going to ask you again as man to man. Because if you don't stop stalking my daughter, I'm going to take a trip to Pittsburgh." And I told him, I said, "I've never even been to Pittsburgh." I said, "But I'm sitting here now looking at your Facebook page. I have your job. I have your home. I said, you sure as hell don't want me to show up at either place. Do we understand each other? I didn't give him a chance to answer. I hung up. He stopped stalking my daughter. We have got to start standing up for one another. We have got to start standing up for our black women. We have got to stop killing one another over petty BS. Like shoes, girlfriends. It's like that stupid girl in Camden who kidnapped that white girl because she was sleeping with her boyfriend. And not only did she do it, but she filmed it live on Facebook. So she convicted herself. The prosecutor doesn't even have to go to trial. All he has to do is play the tape, John. We got to be smarter than this. And part of the reason she did that is because no one had told her. Every chance I get, I tell young people, do not put your personal business on Facebook. Number one, that allows people to be able to create traps against you. That person that you think is your friend is sitting back, oh yeah, she gonna post this, or he gonna post that. I'm gonna be able to use that against them. If you go to my Facebook page right now, you see very little about my personal life. Very little. I might post something about my son. I might post something about my daughter. But what you see on my page is policy issues. I've had ex-girlfriends go to my page to see if I was single or married. My page says single. But you know what? I have a very nice lady that I'm very proud of. The fact that you don't know that ain't none of your damn business. I know a young lady right now who is just opening up and posting all kinds of crap on Facebook right now and don't realize that's going to affect how she gets a job in the future. And by the way, y'all know that stuff never goes away. Let me say it again. What you put on the internet never goes away. It's stored somewhere on a server. We have to be smarter. We have to start teaching our people, our children, how not just to get over, but get beyond. It's time for us to get beyond this issue of racism and bigotry. We have to accept the fact that white people ain't going. They don't want to play. So you know what you need to do as black folks? Take your ball and go home. Well, I need the white man's job, do you? See, you've been brainwashed to think that you have to work for them. When in fact, most of these companies, let's take Dell Computers. Although it's a big major corporation right now, Michael Dell early on decided that, hey, I ain't working for no computer company. I'm going to build my own computer. And then I'm going to sell them. And he set forth to building his computers in his garage along with a few of his friends. And then he said, well, you know what? I'm not going to sell my computers at computer stores. The only way you can get my computers, because they're special, is that you got to order them online. My point in telling you that little story is the fact that Michael Dell was an entrepreneur before he became a computer magnate. So was Bill Gates. So was all of these people who have these companies that are major 500 companies, Fortune 500 companies now. They started as entrepreneurs. So why aren't we teaching our children entrepreneurship? Because see, if we teach our children entrepreneurship, then that means that we would have to go and shop at black businesses. I told the story a few months ago about the black woman, a friend of mine, who was sending her daughter to medical school. And she says, once my daughter finishes medical school, she needs to be your doctor. I looked at her and I said, nah, don't want her to be my doctor. She was offended. She said, why? I said, do you shop at black businesses? She said, she got angry at me. She said, well, what does that mean? What does that have to do with the conversation we having? You know how black women get when they get upset when they start working their neck. I said, sister, calm down. Let me explain to you. I said, just answer the question for me. Do you shop at black businesses? She said, no. Why would I shop at black businesses? They got bad servers. They have bad products. And she'd go, and just like many of you, you give me a litany of reasons why you don't shop at black businesses, don't you? And she too gave me a litany of reasons why she's not shopping at black businesses. So I then asked her, I said, well, the reasons that you gave me why you don't shop at a black business, and y'all understand I'm an entrepreneur too. The reasons that she gave me, I gave her the same reasons as to why I will not use her daughter as my doctor. And she got upset with me. She said, see, you playing. I said, no, I'm not playing. She said, that really makes no sense. I said, really? It doesn't? I said, at the end of the day, eventually your daughter is going to want to open her own practice. Right? She said, yeah. I said, so when she opens her own practice, although her title is doctor, she is an entrepreneur. She is running her own business. In fact, I was driving by this place the other day. I believe it was on Markham, where it's a brand new surgery center. In other words, doctors have decided that they are going to not have surgery at the hospitals because that costs so much money. They figured that they could save some of that money and get more money from insurance if they do it through their surgery centers. In other words, they became an entrepreneur through surgery. That young lady's mother didn't get it. I told her, I said, I'm sorry, sister. I said, why would I, if you won't shop at a black business because they are black, why would I go to your daughter who's going to be a doctor? She's black. She didn't understand, as many of y'all don't. If you don't shop at a black business, when you send your child to college and make them make all of that, get all that debt so that they can get out and go, look, we're the only people that send our kids to college to work for white people. We're the only people. You spent all that money sending your child to college so she could come out and work for a white company, and then that white company, after 5 years, lays her off. And she don't have the wherewithal to say, hey, look, I went to school for medicine. I can start my own practice. Instead of that, she goes and gets another job with a white company. As long as they paying your bills, they can control you. That's why a lot of you black preachers don't say anything, because y'all get money from white organizations. That's why a lot of you black politicians don't say anything, because you're getting money from white organizations. Not understanding that that organization doesn't want you because they care about you. They want you because they want you to push an agenda. Their agenda. And you push it to the point where you even ignore your own case. And although I don't talk about these two young ladies much on this show because of their ignorance, burnt coal and spider spit are the classic examples of that. They are so happy that some Republicans are throwing money at them that they're willing to do and say anything against their own people. That's deep. You're willing to sell your own soul and your children's soul for 30 pieces of silver. There is something wrong with that. Y'all talk about the pride of black women. Y'all don't even realize that Queen Nzinga from Africa fought Europeans for 40 years. The Dahomey warriors repelled Alexander the Great. A lot of people don't. Y'all saw Black Panther. Y'all don't realize that those black warriors that protected the king, you know where they came from? You know who you know how they were modeled after? The Dora Milaje? They were modeled after the Dahomey warriors. That's true. And y'all didn't even know it. Well, guess what? You know it now. We have the power. We could change this whole country overnight. I've told you how. We don't have to fire a shot. See, there are a lot of black people out there. Hey, we need a revolution. We need a revolution. Well, how are you going to have a revolution when you don't have any support? We need a revolution. We need a... Shut up. First of all, you have to have a revolution in your mind. Y'all need to go to war with some of that white supremacist thinking in your mind. You need to get that white supremacist out of your head. Hello? That's the first thing. Have that revolution. Then once you have that revolution in your mind, I'm not telling you anything that I wouldn't do, because you know I had that same revolution in my mind 25 years ago. I kept saying something ain't right with me, something that doesn't make sense. So I decided to go and research and find out what the sense was. And I had that revolution in my mind. Trust me, it was hard. A lot of my friends didn't understand me. A lot of people grew to dislike me because I was having a revolution in my mind. And once that revolution was complete and I had won, I began to see things a lot clearly. So you have to have that revolution in your mind. But we could solve this problem overnight. But you got to have that revolution in your mind first. You know, I'm a sports person, right? My heart is sports. But what do I see every time I watch a football game or a basketball game? In fact, I was watching I'm a track and field closet fan too. Track and field is really my secret love. What do I watch? What do I see? I see black children running, jumping, tackling. What would happen? What would happen if you told your black kids not to show up for the game? What would happen? What would happen if you told your black kids that, hey, if I can't vote in that state, you're not playing in that state? What would happen? Right here in Arkansas, what would happen if you told your black kids that you are not going to the University of Arkansas? What would happen if all those black kids that has made Nick Saban rich at Alabama, what would happen if those black kids said, I'm not going to Alabama because Alabama is one of the most racist states in America? They're participating in voter suppression. What would happen if you told your black kids that I'm not going to the University of Florida because the University of Florida has a poll tax? What would happen? See, now, if you're sitting out there saying, oh, well, that'll never happen, that's because you have not had the revolution in your mind yet. See, to believe that this could happen, you first must have that revolution in your mind. And once you have that revolution in your mind, then you can begin to fathom that, hey, we do have the power. It's 65 days to football season. 70% of the people who play college football are black. I've told you this before. While I was doing my show in Nashville, we had this conversation on the air on a white radio station with a white co-host. I told you when I did radio in Nashville, I didn't betray my people because I was on a white station. We had this conversation and we threw it out to the audience and we said, hey, look, what do y'all think? What would sports look like today if not for black people? White guy called in and said, Dave, I got to agree with you. In fact, the majority of the guys that called in agreed with me. One of the things that I don't want you to do is agree with me just to make me feel good. A lot of people say, do that. Oh, man, I love your show. I don't care if you love my show or not. I want to have dialogue. So one white guy called into the station and he said, Dave, I agree with you. He said, if black people stop playing football and basketball right now, all we'd have is a bunch of slow white boys. And I wouldn't watch. That's a white guy. And many others after that conversation called up to agree with him. So you say we don't have power, right? White people know the power that you have. Asians know the power that you have. Every time they open a store in your neighborhood, they know how much power you have. Hispanics know the power that you have. The problem is black folks don't know the power that they have. And consequently, we're suffering. Our children are suffering. Our children's children will suffer. I've seen the enemy and he is weak. And until we destroy the enemy in our minds, we're always going to be stepped on by others. Don't get mad at the Asian because he can come in your community and make money. Don't get mad at the Hispanic because he can come into your community and make money. Don't get mad at the white man because he continually manipulates you and abuses you and makes money off of you through private prisons. You let them. It's like leaving your front door open. And not just leaving the door open, but putting a sign up and saying, hey, come on in and take what you want. That's what black people have done. You want to solve that problem? You need a mindectomy. That white supremacist mind that you live with every day. It needs to be removed. It's like cancer. If you don't remove it, it's going to not only infect you, it's going to infect your children, and it's going to infect your grandchildren. Look around you. That point is undeniable. I'm going to get out of here. I know y'all got to go celebrate the 4th. I'm going to go kick back like a fat rat old school style and reminisce on my blackness and what my people were doing July 4th, 1776. And I promise you, they weren't having a barbecue. I'll see y'all on Monday. You have a great weekend. Now that was a show.
Our issues with our solutions and our voices. Join us every weekday afternoon at 1
All right, folks. Y'all have a great weekend.